It was meant to be a calm Friday night, the kind of evening where you finally hope to catch your breath after a very long and heavy week of work and worry. For a very long time, my wife Natalie and I have been living like complete strangers under the same roof. It is a very sad and lonely thing to feel like a guest in your own home, walking on eggshells, so you do not break the silence. There was a lot of quiet time between us and a strange, cold feeling in the air that we just could not find the right words to talk about anymore. Then, out of the blue, she suggested we go out for a nice dinner so we could finally talk. Her voice sounded very careful and slow, almost like she had spent a long time practicing what she was going to say in front of a mirror before she came to speak to me. Even though things have been very bad between us, I really wanted to believe this was a good sign of things getting better. For many months, she had been acting very distant and far away. She was always looking at her phone, staying at her office until very late at night, and she hardly ever laughed at my jokes anymore. I felt like I was slowly losing her, like sand slipping through my fingers, but I still had a tiny bit of hope left in my heart. I thought maybe this dinner could be the way we started fixing our broken pieces and making our life together strong again. I wanted to believe that she wanted to save what was left of our 10 years together. So I put on a nice, clean shirt and made a booking at her favorite little Italian place. It was a place with warm lights and red tablecloths where we used to be very happy. I told myself that love is a very strong thing, and even when it feels thin and worn out like an old blanket, it might still have a chance to grow back if you take care of it. But as soon as she sat down across from me, I felt a deep chill in my bones. Her face looked very far away, and her fingers kept tapping on her wine glass over and over. I could tell right then that this was not a talk to fix things or a talk to heal our hearts. It was a talk to say goodbye forever. The waiter had only just finished pouring our red wine when she finally spoke. Her voice was very steady and calm, which made it hurt even more than if she had been crying or screaming. She looked me right in the eye and said, "Mark, I am leaving you." She did not sound sad or upset about the end of our marriage. She just sounded like she had already moved on to a new house and a new life. My chest felt like there was a big, empty hole in it where my heart used to be, but I stayed quiet and let her finish. Then she said something that felt even colder than the first news. She told me, "I have met someone else. He makes me feel alive again." It did not feel like she was telling me a secret she was ashamed of or a mistake that she felt bad about. It felt like she was making a big, happy announcement to a room full of people. I slowly put my fork down on the table and leaned back in my chair. I looked at her and asked very softly, "So, why did we come to this dinner, if you already decided?" She gave a little nod, and she looked like a huge weight had been lifted off her shoulders. "I wanted us to have a clean break," she said. "I do not want us to be angry or mean to each other while we split up our things. I just want us to be polite and civil." That word, civil, really stung my heart like a needle. It felt worse than the fact that she was leaving. We had been together for 10 whole years, through good times and bad, and here she was, ending our marriage like she was finishing a boring business deal at work. I looked at her very closely, noticing all the small things I had missed over the last few months. She had a new way of doing her hair that made her look different, and she was wearing a perfume I did not recognize at all. Her phone kept lighting up on the table with new messages every minute, but she acted like she did not see them. "What is his name?" I asked her. I think I already knew the answer deep down inside my soul. She looked a bit uncomfortable for a second and then whispered, "It does not really matter right now." I gave her a very small, sad smile because I knew more than she thought I did. I told her, "You might want to hold on to that honesty you like so much, because in about 2 minutes, things are going to change for everyone." She looked very confused and asked me what I meant by that. I did not say anything else to her. Instead, I looked toward the front door of the restaurant. A tall man in a gray suit had just walked in. He was the same man I had seen in a picture on her phone a few weeks ago when she thought I was not looking. His name was Ethan, and he was the person she worked with on all those projects. He was the real reason she was always working late and coming home after I was already asleep. But he was not alone tonight. He was helping a woman take off her heavy coat. That woman was his wife, Melissa. When Natalie turned around in her chair and saw them, She turned as white as a sheet of paper. Ethan stopped right where he was in the middle of the floor. He looked like a deer caught in headlights, frozen and scared. He was still holding his wife's purse in his hand, like he did not know what to do with it. For a long moment, the four of us just stared at each other. It was so quiet in our corner of the room that you could hear a pin drop on the floor. The air felt heavy with the shock of the truth finally coming out into the light. I leaned in a little bit closer and asked Natalie very softly, "You did not think I would invite them to join us, did you?" Natalie's voice was shaking now, and her face was full of fear. "You did what?" she asked. I took a slow sip of my wine and looked her in the eye. I told her that when she started acting so strange and distant, I decided to see what was really going on behind my back. It turned out that Ethan's wife, Melissa, had been worried about her husband and his late nights, too. So she and I talked, and we decided it would be a good idea to all have dinner at the same place, so we could see the truth together. Melissa looked very pale, but her eyes were full of a hot anger as she looked at Ethan. "So it is all true," she said in a quiet, shaking voice that everyone could hear. Ethan tried to act like nothing was wrong, even though it clearly was. "Melissa, let's not do this here in public," he whispered, trying to move her away. But Melissa was not going to stay quiet or hide anymore. "You told me it was over between you two," she said, and her voice was trembling with the pain of being lied to. "You told me those work trips to other cities did not mean anything." By now, the whole restaurant was silent and still. Everyone was watching us like we were a movie. Natalie was shaking so much she had to grab her cloth napkin to try and hide it. She was trying to act like she was okay, but you could see the big panic in her eyes. I just sat there in my chair and watched it all happen. I did not need to yell or scream or make a big scene. The truth was doing all the hard work for me. Finally, Natalie looked at me with eyes that were begging for help. "Mark, I did not know she would be here tonight. This was not how this was supposed to go." I looked her right in the eyes with no smile at all. I asked her, "You mean you were not supposed to get caught in your lie?" I waited a second to let that sink in, and then said, "Lies have a funny way of showing up even when they are not invited to the party." Ethan tried to grab Melissa's arm to calm her down, but she pulled away from him like he was made of fire. Tears were running down her face now. She looked at Natalie and said, "You can have him. He is all yours now. I hope you have good luck with a man like him, because he has been lying to me for many, many years." I slowly stood up from the wooden table. I put my napkin down and left some paper money to pay for my part of the meal and the wine. Natalie reached out her hand to try and stop me from leaving. She was crying now and saying, "Mark, please wait, let's talk." I stopped for just a small second to look at her one last time. I told her very quietly so only she could hear, "You ended our marriage the very day you decided that I was not enough for you. I just let everyone see the truth today so we can all move on." Then I walked out the door into the cool night air. I left them all sitting there in the big mess they had made with their own choices and their own lies. Later that night, Melissa called me on my phone. She sounded like she was trying to stay strong and brave, but she was very sad and hurt. "Thank you," she said to me. I needed to see it with my own eyes to finally believe what was happening. We talked for a long time that night. We were not looking for romance or a new partner. We were just two people who were feeling the same kind of deep, stinging pain. We understood each other in a way that only people who have been hurt like that can truly understand. The next morning, Natalie came back to our house. Her eyes were red from crying all night, and her face looked very tired and old. She whispered that she was so sorry and that it was already over between her and Ethan because of the mess. She told me she was silly and that she had lost everything she cared about in the world. I looked at her and shook my head slowly. "You did not lose it," I said. "You chose to give it away for something else." She begged me for another chance to make things right and be a family again, but I did not change my mind. I told her, "You want to be honest, so stay honest with yourself now. This is a life you chose for yourself." Then I closed the door and turned the lock. Many months have gone by since that Friday night at the Italian restaurant. I have slowly been putting my life back together, one piece at a time, like a puzzle. It takes a lot of time to heal a heart, but I am doing it. I sold the house where we lived and shared so many memories, got a new job that makes me happy, and went on some long trips to see the world. I saw the mountains and the ocean, and I learned that life goes on even when you think it might stop. I met new friends who showed me that I am enough just as I am, and that honesty is the most beautiful thing a person can have. I heard that Ethan's marriage ended right after that night. He also lost his job after Melissa told his bosses what he'd been doing during work hours. Natalie lives in a small apartment on the other side of town now. She used to talk about wanting freedom and a new life, but I think now that freedom feels a lot more like sadness and deep regret. Sometimes I still think about that dinner and the look on her face when the truth walked through the door. She thought she was leaving me to find a better life with someone else. Instead, she walked right into a disaster that she created with her own lies. All I had to do was make sure the truth had a seat at the table.